The Forward Thinkers Show is available on Apple and Spotify podcasts.
Hey, it's Coral, and welcome to the Forward Thinkers Show, the podcast where we share the stories and expertise of global leaders in business and technology. Today we are joined by Daniel Lapidot, a Silver Knight nominee and AI and ethics enthusiast, computer science student. Thank you so much for coming here, Daniel. I'm so
Thank you
happy.
so much for having me. This is great. I love this. I never thought I'd have this opportunity. It's great.
It is. It is. It's like, we get to chill, we get to talk. It's awesome. So, Danielle, I want to go back to the beginning. Why computer science? How did you get into it?
I guess it starts with my dad. Well, my mom's from Cuba and my dad's from Israel. And it's really funny because they don't really have that big of a technology background, because at least in Cuba, they didn't really have very advanced technology, lots of stuff from the old era. But later on, when they came here, they both ended up coming to America around the same time. This is like where they were able to learn a lot more about technology. My dad always had a passion for engineering and building and stuff like that. Specifically, like electrical engineering, he was pretty good at, and he was able to use that when he got here, which he learned a lot of stuff, used a lot of books, and then that got him into IT. He's been doing it for like 25 years. I've always been exposed to lots of technology in the house. I loved using the Game Boy when I grew up, and we also worked on fun little DIY electronic projects like building my own radio and stuff like that, and that was incredible. It was a great learning opportunity as a child, and so I love building things, seeing them come to life. And with computer science, you get to analyze how artificial brains work, right? Like computer brains, simulations, and then from simulations come games and programs. And it's just like, it's incredible, and it's definitely in.
I know in high school, you did something pretty great. You built a project for good. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So this is where I got this Silver Knight nomination in the category of science. I had two projects, the recycling program and the gardening program. Now, let's start with the recycling program. There's one thing that I noticed was missing from all the classrooms: the recycling cans. Everything was thrown into the trash, food, paper, plastic, all that stuff. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I spoke with faculty, and I basically made a rogue organization of students that would work underneath me to pick up the recycling bins. I was able to map up the whole place, and I made it very efficient and almost fun for the students. Basically encourage the students to recycle and to learn proper waste management. The gardening program was similar, but instead of with recyclable waste, it was with food waste. You know that 40% of all food produced in the U.S. ends up in the landfills. Wow. It's devastating. Like over the COVID break, I had really gotten into gardening, and I decided to make my own sub-irrigation gardening plot. And when I got back to school, I learned of the power of composting, something that exists since we ever started and before us. And I was like, there's so much school lunch that kids like just end up in the trash. I was like, what a waste of resources. The gardening program does the same thing, but it's when you take food and you compost it, so you're giving nutrients back to the earth, and then you build a garden, which eventually gives back to you if you have like fruit-bearing plants and stuff like that. What I learned is that from these two programs, although that doesn't have much to do with technology, it does carry a very important lesson. A lot of the issues that are made by people could be solved with a little bit of education and a nudge in behavior, right? The real obstacle in many issues or projects are ourselves. We all have dreams and aspirations, but until you lay it out brick by brick, you'll find yourself having a hard time actually trying to accomplish any goals. because we can't think of the future and then the present at the same time.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like when people are talking about like innovative technology, they always want to like think about the future and like how it will look like, but no one talks about the things that you can do now. I noticed that with your project, it wasn't a project you built because of money. It was like a genuine interest. And it was and it's not something that you see a lot in engineers. They don't think about the ethics side of things. So do you think we can talk a little bit about, because right now you're taking a certificate, right, in
Yes.
AI and ethics?
The certificate is Ethics of Big Data and AI.
Okay. I really want to understand what is AI and ethics.
Okay.
Yeah.
AI and ethics is actually really interesting. So let's talk about AI. What we find funny about AI is it's actually incredibly similar to how humans are. AI is like a human brain. It learns in the same way. When you're an infant and you're a baby, you can't really communicate or do anything. So all you do is absorb information, right? Ages 0 to 5. That's when you're constantly absorbing information, and that's called passive learning. Later on, when you get to school, you do active learning, where the teacher would say, "What's this?" And you respond with an answer, and based on if you're right or wrong, you are rewarded or punished, and then you learn through trial and error what things are. This is the same way that AI works, or at least ChatGPT was raised, right?
Yeah.
The AI bots like ChatGPT, through its first year of its infancy, it's just constantly absorbing information from vast amounts of data sets, and later on, there's the second stage, that's passive learning. The second stage is where you have the people who would be like, "This is a picture of a dog. Show me a picture of a dog." And if it doesn't show a picture, you'll be like, "No, this is a picture." And so that's called active learning. So it's super interesting to see how so much of our technology resembles life itself, right? And the way that we think is the same way that AI thinks, or at least it's built off of the same way.
Computes.
Yeah, the way it computes. It's really interesting. Listen, I'm gonna be honest. I talk to, like, I use Bard a lot. I talk to Bard as if it was my friend.
Oh.
Like, it's really funny. I would have like conversations with him, and like the Bard responds in very clever ways that really mimic human speech. So it's just like for most people, you'd be like, "Whoa, there's a person behind there," or something, right?
Yeah. What are some of the things that we should be worried about with this technology?
So obviously, with great power comes
Great responsibility.
exactly. We already live in the age of information, right? You know, we don't have to rely on almanacs or manuals or handbooks to get our data information. Everything's online.
Yeah.
And what you find is, as long as you make, or we guard our chatbots like Bard or ChatGPT with certain safeguards, like you're not allowed to use certain words that might be dangerous, or things that are controversial or might not be accurate. You could use this to prevent people from searching up bad stuff, like, for example, how do I make an explosive, right? Or like things that would be wrong, like misinformation. And I'm gonna be honest, this misinformation part has a lot to work on, because they did pretty good when it comes to censoring certain topics. For example, I actually saw it live with Bard. I was asking about like it was just really funny. I was just asking a funny topic because I thought it'd be interesting to see how Bard would reply about how Walter White from Breaking Bad makes his sky blue product, right? Methamphetamine. And it was so funny because you could see it building the response live.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, it's like, and he goes, he erases everything and goes, hey, I actually can't talk about this. It's really funny. So it's interesting how he actually, at least Bard, goes over multiple processes when it comes to writing out responses, right? You start off by answering the question, and then you revise it, and then you see, making sure that what you're saying is actually safe, right? So it's actually really interesting how these AI chatbots are made and how we can use them and properly protect them from doing the wrong things that we don't want.
Yeah, but I would kind of like talk about like this point is like, yes, you have to create safety guards, but who benefits from creating safety guards on this certain topics or creating safety guards on other certain topics? So it's kind of like the engineers who create these safety guards have to have some sort of like there is gonna be bias because they're the ones who build it and they have their own moral compass.
Right.
So what is like the benefit of looking into the ethics of building this technology instead of like thinking about like your like let's say for example if you're a flower company and you have like this chatbot in your store and like someone says like a misinformation about like your flowers, but your chatbot actually says the correct information, or it actually says, oh, this other flower shop is actually really bad. They benefit from the chatbot saying, oh, this other flower store is really bad. You should actually stay with us. So there's like
that's actually a super good point to bring up. So oftentimes, at least if they're well done, these AI chatbots will be made to answer based off of like the data set that they learned on and stuff like that. And because these chatbots are very resemblance to us in the way that we learn, just like if you grew up in a place that behaved a certain way, you would replicate that behavior, right?
Yeah.
So just like how if there's errors in a data set, it will replicate those errors.
Yeah.
So what we find is that in order to prevent things like bias, they would include lots and lots of articles, websites, lots of data that is about the same topic so you can get a more fully encompassed point of view. And what I'm trying to say is we like an employee at Google would be like, every time someone searches a carrot, we're gonna make it say that carrots are purple or whatever. But because it has so much information to live websites, I can actually search Google, the search engine. It's able to actually analyze multiple websites and build a response. But what I find really awesome, and I do this myself, where I would actually search up an interesting topic, and he would always give both sides of the argument. Like if I say, why are apples good for you? He'd be like, apples are great. They have this, and this compound. They, apple they doctor away, stuff like that. But it's also gonna be like, however, be careful with consuming too much. Apple seeds have a small percentage of cyanide or something like that. So to prevent bias, you provide both sides of a story. That way, the person who's reading it is able to make their own ideas and their own biases about what they learned, which is actually very interesting to talk about. It's a big thing that you're definitely right, like how you said with the flower place. Like if like let's say Google made Bard, and a company like a medical company was like, hey, we'll pay you. So every time someone mentions chest pain or hard of breathing, you could tell them to prescribe our product. So if that, like, you can actually like hard code it to say certain things, just like how you can safeguard to prevent it from saying bad things, you can also change it to say things that you want others to prefer, right? That could benefit their companies and stuff like that. So it's,
I did not know that.
yeah, it's really interesting, and you have to be careful with which one you use, right? Because like you said, you can actually program some of these APIs so that they would respond in a certain way. Like, have you seen? It's funny. It's happening now. Chatbot friends or stuff like that.
What?
Where basically like there's sometimes paid services or like there's apps on the App Store where it's like it's like have a friend, or like some of them will be
have a girlfriend.
yeah, like have a chatbot girlfriend and like how are you feeling?
Oh no.
Like, yeah, like you could make it like oh I want it to be shy or make her very fun or reserved. So it's just like it's really interesting how you could definitely alter the way your chatbot responds. So what we find is if the chatbot doesn't do it, just do it yourself. You know, it's actually funny. I was searching up like yesterday night. I was searching up young people who did interesting projects at like a young age, and it was really funny. I came across this guy called Eston LaChapelle.
Chappelle?
Yeah.
You don't know who Chappelle is?
No, Eston LaChapelle. That's his name.
Okay.
He when he was 17, he was able to use open source tools to 3D print a robotic arm. Like a prosthetic arm.
Wow.
And it's incredible, like how anyone has access to this information and they can do great things. But when I asked Bart about it, he told me about him, except the thing that he said about his project, he's like, oh, he actually helped create like a special gel that collects it. I was like, hey Bart, is this real? Like I searched it up and that did not exist. Like it was a hallucination. And then I asked Bart, I was like, Bart, is this like, did that guy really do that? Like, is he real? And he's like, listen, man, I just work here. I'm a large language model. I can't help you with that. So it's important that just like a Damascus steel knife, it's only as good as the skill and technique using it, right? So if you're gonna over rely on chatbots, understand you're gonna get hallucinations sometimes, right?
You will. Because right now it's still like, even though it's advanced a lot, it's still at its early stages.
It's only gonna get better. I
So
believe.
you believe? So far you've mentioned misinformation is something that happens with AI tech, not with large language models specifically, because AI is a whole. It's an umbrella term.
Yeah, it's a huge.
Large language models can have bias, misinformation. Is there anything else that could happen with?
Absolutely. So algorithms. This is actually something that I learned yesterday in my class for ethics of big data AI. Is algorithms are everywhere, right? You have algorithms in our street lights. You have algorithms in our welfare. You have algorithms in our education, in law, in all these things, healthcare. And we find that sometimes you'll find yourself with false positives or false negatives and stuff like that, where, like for example, people who apply for a job, right? You get people, you have like let's say you have like an old-fashioned guy, but he's really good at what he does, and he writes his essay for a job application, you know, like how people used to back then, or like a normal one, you would find that he has a lot less ability to actually get hired than someone who uses a bunch of spark words that the algorithm will pick up on, because there is so much data that it has to sit through an algorithm before it gets to the human, because we're not able to compute these things super efficiently. Like a lot of these companies get hundreds of resumes a day.
Millions.
So to thin it out, they use algorithms to pick out special things and to find things that they're interested in. So what you find is that if you know how to use the tool and you know the secrets behind the algorithm, you will find yourself a lot you'll be able to use the tool better. Like things will be a lot more efficient. You will get a lot more recognition. Like if you were applying for a job, just make sure that the things that you say you can actually do, right? Like it's like, yeah, I'm really good at Scratch and AI and big data and yeah, like imagine it's gonna be funny, right? Yeah, rewriting my resume soon.
No.
Oh my gosh, I have to make sure to include all those words.
Oh no! I mean, because you have to quote unquote feed the algorithm. It's like a thing. It's like you have to cater to the bias of big company who created this product. And I think something that a lot of engineers, I feel like we forget that we do have a responsibility when we're building things, where we're protecting things, where we're making things. We have to make it in a way that we don't have things like misinformation happen. But the only way to do that is if you're creative. Yeah. Having creative solutions.
Solutions.
So how can engineers who are responsible for creating these algorithms become more creative and be more creative in that process? Because I know your idea of getting all of those students together to create that rogue group and have all the recycling bins, that was an idea that was, you had to be creative about that approach. But I feel like that would be such a great benefit to engineers who want to find better solutions to create a more equitable, more ethical AI technologies.
So one thing that many people don't think about when they're creating things, or they think about it and they take advantage of, is cater towards your audience. Know who is using your applications or your programs. And if you anticipate this, you'll be able to, and if you're smart about it, you'll be able to be creative enough to take out any future problems that might have later on. Like for example, engineers at YouTube found that there was a big influx of younger generations using YouTube, especially like with all these tablet kids and stuff like that. And so they decided to change, or they made a separate program, YouTube Kids, to cater towards their younger audience. And this also came with a lot of good things, because then it also stopped other people from making mature content for kids.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And exposing to things that aren't really good for your development.
Yeah,
so it's really important to understand who are you catering for. The next thing that you can do is to understand your limitations. This is a big thing. This is like a big reason why I love CS, is because, like, remember how I brought up the Game Boy from earlier?
Yeah.
I did a little bit of research not too long ago, and I found out that these guys at Nintendo coded these games using assembly. And everyone in computer science knows assembly is a very low-level coding language. It's harsh for humans to read. It's difficult. But the power of that is that they were able to fully control all of the technology in that small handheld device. Like it was so funny because I actually held it in my hand not too long ago, and you can feel that, like, it's so heavy, but the chip inside is like it's kind of small, you know? Like, you have limitations on what you can work on. You can't use languages like Java or C++ because they have memory and stuff like that. You need more space in order to utilize these things. So what we find is that they had to use assembly to work within the limitations of their hardware. And because they did that, not only did they make a foolproof product, they also made incredible games that were just high quality and stuff like that. And so understanding your limitations will push you to work as much as you can and get the most that you can within those limitations.
Yeah, it's like the limitations of that hardware help them be more creative into creating
Exactly. Because they don't have the liberty of having more space, and they also had deadlines, so they couldn't have so much time. So yeah, like you said, with these limitations, they had to get more creative to make sure and to ensure that their product was good. Because if it doesn't, it flops, and they just lost all that time and effort and money.
Why is it that people only want to make products for profit? People don't look at how the effects of having a product, like the negative side of things and how that could affect that, like especially with AI right now.
That's really interesting because in reality, a lot of the small teams that work on these things genuinely do want to make and build for the benefit of humanity. What we find is later on when these projects get caught by big tech companies, like for example, WhatsApp. WhatsApp was its own project until it got bought by Facebook. And then what we find is that when companies latch onto ideas, of course, it's expensive to buy these projects. Now they got to get their bang for their bucks. So they have to figure out a way to monetize it or to sell you more products or do something that kind of dulls the purpose of the projects in the first place. Here's a good example. TikTok, right? So the idea behind TikTok being you create videos with music in the background and you share them with other people, you know, that originally was made with the idea of sharing funny videos with each other or interesting information. It's a form of media. So the concept of that kind of app or like social media is an old concept. It goes back to newspapers. But what we find is that now that they spent so much time developing these projects, they have to make their money's worth, right? So what they would do is they would show you a video, and then underneath the video, they would have related products, or they would advertise you things based off of what you seem to like in the algorithm, right? And so what we find is that there needs to be a good balance between being able to fund yourself and sticking true to
Your values.
Your values,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you said,
So know your audience.
know your audience,
and then,
know your
and know your limitations.
and the third thing.
The third thing, well, there's obviously a lot more, but these are
Ethics.
things. These are things. Oh yeah, ethics. Okay, so there's a really good book that I've been listening to a little bit, and it's called Rationality by Steven Pinker, and he actually goes over a lot about technology and ethics, and like he has a really nice chapter about it where he basically discusses how when technology is used rationally, it's able to push a lot of ethical values. For example, technology like vaccines, GPS, communication like calling and messaging and stuff like that. All of these things aren't, oh, maybe the vaccines, but all these things don't actually directly, give money to the companies, right? Like, for example, Google Maps doesn't have ads on it. It's a free software that you can use, and it was made for the pure benefit of humanity, right? So it's extremely important to understand how ethics will not only force you or give you a limitation to make a good product, but it'll also make a product that doesn't take advantage of people and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So this is actually something that we learned a lot in philosophy or ethics. There's a section called Kantian ethics made by a philosopher called Kant. And one thing that he talks about is means and ends. And another rule that he uses to describe morality, you should never have people as a mere means. They should always be an end in of themselves, right? So, for example, vaccines are a means to give immunity to people, the ends. GPS is a means to help people navigate the world. Once you start to conflict that using people as a mere means, you find yourself in a lot of dystopian novels, right? A really funny one is Huxley's Brave New World. And in this book, he talks about how, like, it's a dystopian world where they made like the perfect drug that doesn't have any side effects and it just gives you instant happiness. And there's no side effects or nothing. You just get instant gratitude. And what he finds is that although these people can become instantly happy by, like taking this perfect drug, they find themselves being enslaved by the people who provide it and like the government that controls them through these drugs. Obviously, this dystopian was written in like the early 1900s. But it's not far off from real life, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's seen those like comics of like people looking down at their phone and they can't, like they're running through traffic or whatever. That's like a very real thing, right?
Yeah.
The best example, TikTok. You know how many teens use TikTok? It's like 90 something percent. There's a big number of teens that use TikTok, and not only that, but some of these people abuse it.
Yes.
I'm talking 5 to 7 hours
on average
on your phone. What could be on your phone that is so important that you have to do that, unless if it's work or something like that? Even then, like I can't even sit hunched over on my phone for 5 to 7 hours. We find that apps like, let's say, Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, especially YouTube reintroducing YouTube Shorts, all of these things are trying to make that perfect drug, right? You have these algorithms that constantly show you a feed of things that it knows you're going to like, and things that are like, wow, or things that make you angry, or like emotions that are easily exploitable, right? And what we find is that TikTok, Instagram, YouTube benefit by your watch time. They show you ads, they show you products that you can buy. They're using people as a mere means to gain revenue and profit. Now, this isn't always a bad thing, because some companies or company models can't help but have people being used, because people are always customers at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So like you need a way to tie in customers so that your company can stay afloat.
Yeah.
But if your company is just there to mentally enslave people by giving them a constant feed of dopamine, which is the same chemical, for those who don't know, that is it's called the addiction chemical, and it's the same chemical that you get from using drugs or smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. It's an addictive chemical. People who gamble a lot, they get a huge feed of dopamine. And so what we find is these apps are doing the same thing. They're making perfect drugs where if you don't like what you're looking at, all you gotta do is scroll and scroll. And it's passive content that you're just eating off of. And getting into what they're showing you is an entire different can of worms.
Yeah, it's a whole Roman Empire, but we don't have that much time for that Roman Empire today.
So what we find is that it's so important to understand ethics, especially when you're building products as an engineer, or if you're building a program or whatever it is, because it's going to have real effects on the people around you.
Yeah, and especially if you are a large company, it's going to make an even bigger impact.
Yeah, for example, back then we had channels like PBS Kids, right?
Yes.
Which would show you lots of fun little cartoons. It's something that kids would watch in the morning before they go to school. Nowadays, they have Cocomelon, and
I've heard things about Cocomelon.
Millions of videos, right? And what we find is that they try to make it as addictive as possible for these kids. They have a bunch of nursery rhymes, they have super vibrant colors. And what we find is that when you overstimulate your child with all these things, there was actually research done that shows that young kids who grew up watching too much Cocomelon actually had issues in their development of language and communication. Because if they're always talking in rhythm, right, in a song, so they would try and replicate that. Like the kids would start talking in like rhythm. So obviously it's good for the company because it brings in a ton of money, but they lack what other shows had, like Dora the Explorer or Art.
When I thought that children were using like kids apps, I'm thinking back to when I was in elementary, because they used this program called Starfall, and the thing about Starfall is that it spells out letters for you. Like if you type in what your name is, and then it goes, my name is, and then there's different sections of a game. There's a section. There's a game actually that you have to match the sound of how a word sounds, and then match it to the letter. So let's say the letter A, it'll show you the letter A, and then it'll go and then it'll go, and it teaches you literally the phonics. I think that's what it's called. It teaches you phonics. It teaches you how to say your name. It teaches it's like a reading game. When I think of a good product that's good for kids, that's good for their development, I think of Starfall. I don't think of Cocomelon.
Yeah, think about it.
Yeah.
The purpose of Starfall was to teach children language or teach them how to communicate or how to pronounce all this stuff. Cocomelon, their business model is grab as many kids to the screen.
Yes.
We need money.
Yes.
You know, and they mass produce content that you can see, like, dude, you know how easy it is? There's so many tools out there that are used, that use AI and algorithms that they would make you videos. They would edit your videos or they would produce content.
Yeah.
And it's just like copy, paste, BS. It's like
Yes.
they really switched from quality to quantity.
Yes.
And it's just, we're feeding ourselves trash.
Yes.
You are what you eat.
The YouTube algorithm now, it's all hustle bros and hustle bro culture. That's literally my whole feed. I used to watch like back in the day, I used to watch vlogs of people, and people would tell their life and be more cinematic, and I loved that because it actually helped me. But now all the kids are watching just hustle bros on TikTok,
Yeah,
and on
like
YouTube,
like being little sigmas
and I'm like,
sitting alone at
why
the
is
lunch
the
table so they can
algorithm-
ponder their
because
thoughts.
it's the only type of content that gets the most views, and if you get more views, you get more ad space, and more ad space, money for YouTube. Like Mr. Beast, it's literally
It's a full numbers game.
and it's like, I used to watch videos that were like 30 minutes long that were not like the Mr. Beast videos that are now. It's like,
Well, he does have long videos,
Yeah.
but you notice that in his videos, there's a science to this. He designs it very intelligently, and a lot of people are catching on, a lot of content creators. Even if the video is 30 minutes long, it's not like a 30-minute lecture or
Yeah.
monologue. He breaks up, like, for example, if he's doing like a 100-day challenge or whatever, he breaks up each section into game theorist did a video on this where he breaks up each section into like a minute and 22 seconds so that you see one challenge, and then after that minute and 22 seconds, it's not long enough for you to lose interest, and then you snap to a new topic or a new day or a new section. It's just like, wow. So like, it's basically mocking the same structure as these social media sites like Instagram and TikTok, right?
Yes.
You watch a video for 20 to 50 seconons, scroll. Watch 20 to 50 seconds, scroll. It's the same thing. And so this is coming back to ethics, right?
Ethics, yeah.
These things are pairing up with like psychologists so that they can fully hijack their mind. Guys,
That is
we
so
understand
icky.
it makes you good money, but just think about who you're taking advantage of.
You're taking advantage of people's time. You're taking advantage of people's ability to communicate in real life and create genuine connections with people. You're taking advantage of people's ability to spend, because people have money and they have savings, but like,
Oh,
if you
my
psychologically
goodness. Don't get me started on Temu.
on Temu.
Temu.
Oh, have you thought of the TikTok shop? I hate that.
TikTok shop.
Yes,
Exactly.
those are not the things that you need in your app because I don't know what it is. I feel like
they show you something a little they see that you're into cosmetics. You watch a video where creators using lipstick, and then right underneath the video or in the TikTok shop you see that same exact lipstick. You don't ask yourself, do I need this? You're just like, oh, that's cute, I like that.
Yeah.
Bye. You know, it's like $1 to $7. Bye. And then you keep going through the video and you buy and buy and buy, and then you find that you have a huge shopping list of little knickknacks that are most likely gonna just gather dust.
yes.
You know, it's things need to change.
It's not to say that making money is bad. Making money is not bad, but making money by taking advantage of people, I don't find that good. I want to, if I'm going to work for a company or if I'm going to build a company, I want to make sure that the values of where I'm going or what I'm building is not to take advantage of people.
Yeah.
There is ways that you can make money without having to exploit people. There is ways, like, because, I don't know, like,
yeah,
it's the TikTok shop coming, bro. Like, that's the whole thing.
Yeah, and well, the reason why there's so many engineers and so many good people out there who are genuinely building products. And, like, listen, just ask ChatGPT or Bard. Ask about, hey, is there a company that's doing this, or is there someone who's doing this? And you'll find, dude, there's tons of people that are working for good things. But now that computer science is such, big tech is such an industry. It's an industry in itself by storm.
Yes,
it's becoming so competitive that the only way to float is either by being funded by some big tech corporation that controls what you do, or if you just exploit others, right? So at the end of the day, the more people you capture, the more revenue you get. And sometimes people use not so ethical means to get more people, right? Technology is the fastest evolving thing in our lives right now. To the point where humans got to catch up. We got to catch up. Like, for example, communication. Social media, TikTok. we find there's a few research studies done by Pew Research Center, Common Sense Media, and they find that a lot of teens are getting caught up on today's news from celebrities, personalities, and influencers off of their social media sites, in juxtaposition to newsletters that like older generations would most likely look into, right? And what we find is that this really opens up huge gates to misinformation, because people say news organizations are outdated, and some of them are always like, they always write for a certain agenda and stuff like that. And a lot of this stuff is true, but like, don't think that social media doesn't do that. Like, guys, what's good about newsletters is that they always have a team behind it, right? And a person finds a story, then someone writes it out, and then an editorial comes in and makes sure that it makes sense and it's not just like spewing out garbage. There are trends on the internet that people, like teens, are just like, oh my God, everything that they say is true. But it's just like, it goes to show that people would rather just believe what they say than just give a quick search.
Actually doing the research.
Yeah.
What should we have technology for?
The purpose of technology is to push moral progress, to give us more time, and to make our work more efficient, to be properly creative, and to be morally good. You have to cater to your audience. You have to work within and understand your limitations, and to always have ethics in mind. Never use people as a mere means.
Yes.
Like things that are easily exploitable, like games or entertainment, could still be used to do good things. And with ethics and morals in mind, could not only help out your company, but could also help out the people who are using it.
Yeah.
And I think that fine line between
Money,
like
profit,
profit and actually helping people will like that's something that should be sought after.
Yes, but it's not like companies aren't perfect. If you're building something, it's not going to be perfect, but it's always good to have it in mind.
Yeah, and always like that should be the end goal. Always try to approach that balance.
Yes. That's something that we all need. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Of course.
This was such an insightful conversation.
Thank you for listening to the Forward Thinkers Show.